Could last-minute filings delay the federal trial of City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby? Fox 45 News takes a closer look at the requests coming from both sides and how the decisions might play a bigger role in the case. A labor dispute could turn your morning commute into a nightmare when a potential strike may force many MARC riders to flood the interstate or leave them without a ride. After a 14-year-old is gunned down, his family is speaking out.
No one should have to bury their children.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 4.
Taking a live look at the federal courthouse in downtown Baltimore, where Marilyn Mosby is inside right now for what's scheduled to be her final pre-trial hearing. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mary Bubala.
I'm Kai Jackson. A flurry of last-minute filings and a push for a delay in the trial that's supposed to start Monday.
Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost brings us up to speed.
Federal prosecutors want two expert witnesses the defense plans to call excluded from trial. Prosecutors say Marilyn Mosby and her defense team failed to meet a deadline to disclose who would be testifying. If the witnesses can testify, the prosecutors want a delay in the trial. In response, Mosby's team calls the prosecutors' latest move hypocrisy. Writing the investigation into the city's top prosecutor has taken a toll on her professional and personal life, pushing for the trial to move forward as scheduled. Prosecutors also pushing for Mosby's previous comments about her travel businesses to be allowed into the trial. Evidence from prosecutors show Mosby and her spokesperson, Zai Richardson, talking about how to respond to questions about her businesses in 2020, claiming they were not operational and there are no clients. The filings also show a letter Mosby sent to Baltimore City Inspector General Isabel Cumming saying, quote, "I ask that you verify that I have not taken on a single client for these companies, nor have I taken in any money," Mosby wrote. That's the same year the defense says Mosby's net worth dropped and her travel businesses took a hit financially, which they claim qualified her to withdraw the money out of her retirement account without penalty. Prosecutors disagree, saying she made more money in 2020 than she did in 2019, and that's where they say the perjury charges come into play. This spreadsheet from prosecutors appears to show Mosby's net worth did not decline. Shows her retirement account took a hit during the pandemic, but it rebounded, and Mosby's liabilities were paid down. Meanwhile, Mosby's attorneys call the prosecutor's latest filing trial by ambush tactics. In Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
And this is just into the newsroom right now. While the court has yet to officially announce a delay, the court is signaling it may be leaning in that direction. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost is in the courtroom. She tweets this is a fairness issue since the issue is so central to the case. The judge also says she's disappointed the sides are not ready to move forward. Also new today, the federal judge overseeing the trial of Marilyn Mosby is ordering the jury to be partially sequestered. Now, that means the jury will have to stay together while on duty in the courthouse. Judge Lydia Grigsby says this is for the jurors' safety. Stay with Fox 45 News as details continue to become available.
Well, we're going to take a look at the charges that Marilyn Mosby is facing. This is count one, perjury. Federal prosecutors say Mosby lied when she took out $36,000 from her City of Baltimore employee retirement account, claiming it was due to financial hardship due to the COVID-19 pandemic. As you can see, investigators say that she checked this box right there, indicating one of those possibilities. Now, count two, false statement on a loan application. Prosecutors allege Mosby signed an application for a $490,000 mortgage on a Florida home, but failing to disclose she owed significant amounts of federal taxes in a lien of just over $45,000. Count three is perjury for another COVID-19 hardship withdrawal. This time, prosecutors say she received $45,000 from her retirement savings, again, allegedly checking the box right here. And it is important to note the indictment claims Mosby made more money in 2020 than she did in 2019. Mackenzie Frost just talked about that. And then count four, a false statement on a loan application for another Florida home. This one is in Longboat Key. Mosby again failing to disclose the tax lien against her, according to federal prosecutors.
Our city is on life support. And here we have one of the biggest churches in the city of Baltimore talking about how to deal with Sweezy kids. How do we deal with the murders that's happening in our city of Baltimore?
In a city in crisis, many are still looking for answers after a community meeting about squeegee kids at a church in West Baltimore. Cameras were not allowed in the meeting, and city workers kept watch to ensure none of it was recorded.
We have young people who have asked us if we participate, it has to be under the condition that we don't have the media.
The young people said they don't want the cameras in there, but they got elders that's out there saying we don't want our windows washed.
Mayor Brandon Scott was not at the meeting. A spokesperson for the mayor says he feared his appearance would be a distraction from an honest conversation.
Well, from July 1st to this Monday, there have been 485 calls to police involving incidents with squeegee kids. That includes the death of Tim Reynolds, a driver who was shot in an altercation with a group of them on July 7th. Now, at the meeting last night, a number of different solutions to dealing with squeegee kids were discussed. City officials say all options are on the table, including paying kids to stay off the streets. A smaller group made up of select members from the city's Squeegee Collaborative will meet to see which proposals could be reasonably enforced. Deputy Mayor Faith Leach says the goal is to have a plan to present to the public in 2 to 3 weeks. Now, that brings us to our question of the day. Are city leaders being transparent and how they're handling the squeegee kids? So far, 100% of those who voted say no. We still want to hear from all of you. Go to foxbaltimore.com/vote to voice your opinion.
Baltimore City Recreation and Parks leaders have scrapped plans for a long-awaited West Baltimore skate park. Community activist Doc Cheatham was among those behind the Easterwood Park design. He says the project came about after he noticed children in his area traveling long distances to other skate parks miles away. Now, instead of giving kids a new place to skate, Rec and Parks decided to make improvements to the current park. Cheatham says the community is devastated.
We are the Western District. That's the #1 crime place in the state of Maryland for the last 7 years. We have averaged 50 homicides a year. We're trying to find things to get the kids to do. My kids are so heartbroken to find out that they were really that close to getting a skateboard park.
Well, Fox 45 reached out to the Baltimore City Parks and Recreation Department multiple times for comment. We're still waiting to hear back.
Developing now, commuters in Baltimore are bracing for disruptions ahead of a possible shutdown of MARC trains Camden and Brunswick lines starting Friday morning. It is part of a national labor dispute with railroad unions, which would halt some commuter trains in our region until a deal is reached. Fox 45's Amy Simpson live right now at Penn Station with the very latest on this situation for us. Amy?
For some Marylanders, it's a lifeline to get to work.
To the first stop.
I don't want to say godsend, but it's really a perfect way for some commuters to get to their employment.
The MARC train running routes between Baltimore and D.C. or Western Maryland and D.C., a way for some to avoid battling Beltway traffic each day.
Well, it's much more relaxing than a stressful drive on 95.
For others, it may be the only way.
I mean, I see a lot of people who get dropped off at the train station or they get picked up, so they don't have any other means of transportation.
Earlier this week, the Maryland Transit Administration alerting MARC riders that due to an ongoing labor dispute between CSX Transportation and its labor unions, a strike was possible starting this Friday morning, September 16th. The alert says CSX owns and maintains MARC's Camden and Brunswick lines, and a strike would result in immediate suspension of service until a deal is reached.
Well, I think it's going to have a really large impact.
This Montgomery County commuter gets on the Camden line in Laurel, riding north into Baltimore City. But if a strike happens, she says she'll have to make other plans. For her, driving is a backup, but parking downtown is the issue.
Gosh, I would really be crushed if I couldn't ride the train, because I've been depending on it for the last several years, and I've become accustomed to it, and I like riding it.
This week, CSX declining to answer questions about the looming possibility of a strike, instead directing us to the railway labor unions. Today, one of those unions, the Association of American Railroads, telling Fox 45 News, parties are meeting meeting and working hard to try to reach an agreement. And in the interest of letting negotiations play out, they're not doing interviews or commenting at this time. Meanwhile, commuters play the waiting game until Friday morning.
I think it really will be a hardship for a lot of people.
And today I also reached out to the National Railway Labor Conference. We'd like to know exactly where these negotiations stand and what exactly railway workers are asking for. But tonight, those questions have not been answered. Reporting live in Baltimore, Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
About a week after his passing, the family of Travis Slaughter says they're ready to make their voices heard. At just 14 years of age, Slaughter is the Milford Mill student who was tragically shot and killed at the end of a high school football game. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor spoke with his loved ones and has more on the messages and memories they once shared. Rebecca?
Yeah, Kai, I spoke with a close family friend today. They say that they want people to know Travis was an exceptional student, friend, and family member. But more than anything, what they really want is answers.
So unfortunate because he had his whole life ahead of him.
A life tragically cut short at just 14 years old.
We are not supposed to bury our children.
Close family friend Natasha Marable describing Travis Slaughter as a bright light taken far too soon.
He was always very fun, loving and outgoing, just a wonderful spirit to be around.
Less than 2 weeks into the school year at Milford Mill Academy,
he was so excited about going to high school.
Travis gunned down at the end of a high school football game.
It's very disheartening. To be honest, words can't sum up the way that I feel about this situation.
Natasha saying not only has she lost a loved one,
the pain is very real.
But it hurts worse knowing the entire community has been left without answers.
It is an ongoing investigation, but from what we are hearing from detectives, it was a random act of violence, that someone came and just started shooting in a crowd.
Not wanting Travis's memory to fade, the family is now pushing to rename the intersection where he lost his life Travis Way, hoping it will serve as both a memorial.
I think that would be a great way to remember him by, a great way for all of the people that love him to remember him.
As well as a warning and call to action.
We can look at that and say, we don't want another Travis Way. Something needs to be done, and it needs to be done immediately.
And this right here is the exact intersection that they're hoping to get renamed. It's currently Washington Avenue and Liberty Road. Again, this is still a very active and ongoing investigation, and anyone with any information into Travis's case is asked to call Baltimore County Police. Reporting live, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Well, his case spurred one of the most popular true crime podcasts ever. Now, Adnan Syed may get a new trial, why prosecutors say they no longer trust the original conviction.
Many in West Baltimore are still worried about drinking the water after an E. coli scare. How residents are challenging city leaders to prove it's safe.
Primaries are over and midterms are next, but why are some Democrats actively helping Trump-backed candidates? I'm Scott Thuman in Washington with a surprising strategy.
And perfect 10 weather today, lots of sunshine to wrap up your afternoon commute. Temperatures falling into the beautiful 70s, low humidity. I'm going to let you know how long it lasts and when our next chance of rain moves in day by day. My Weather Authority forecast.
Fox 45 News, winner of 17 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
We are following breaking news, taking a live look at the federal courthouse downtown. The trial of Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby has been delayed. It was supposed to start Monday. The judge has granted federal prosecutors' request for a delay so they can hire experts to rebut the defense's witnesses. It is not clear when the trial will happen now. No date has been set. Jury selection will not happen tomorrow as originally planned.
Primary season is over, and voters across the country have chosen their candidates for November. But there's a twist this time around.
That's right. Last night, some Trump-backed candidates scored wins. And surprisingly, that is just fine with Democrats, who are taking big risks and have been trying desperately to influence who Republicans choose. Sinclair's chief political correspondent Scott Thuman shows us why.
This fall, President Biden is making very clear his political enemy and Democrats' main target.
MAGA Republicans.
But perhaps ironically, behind the scenes, many Democrats are supporting the more radical Trump-loyal Republicans in hotly contested primaries. Why?
The strategy is clear, which is the candidate that is more extreme in the Republican primary is ultimately going to be easier for the Democrat to beat in the general election. But it's a really high-risk strategy because if those people do go on to win the general election, they're going to be a lot worse for Democratic priorities.
Vice President Harris was just pressed on that strategy.
Is the Democratic Party making a mistake here by those people could win?
I mean, listen, I'm not going to tell people how to run their campaigns.
Is this something you'd be comfortable with?
I'm not going to tell people how to run their campaigns, Chuck.
Democrats aghast at the idea of spending more than $50 million this year, according to the Washington Post, sometimes boosting Trump-endorsed candidates. And even though the ads may sound like a tax.
Handpicked by Trump to run for Congress, Gibbs called Trump the greatest president.
Democrats made them to excite MAGA Republicans. Whether this gamble pays off for Democrats, we won't know until November. But some worry there is another long-term risk here, more division.
Nominating extremists for important office is bad. And I think Democrats should not be in the business of helping anyone do that.
A new poll taken following President Biden's notable shift vilifying MAGA voters shows 58% feel he's divided the country further. Only 20% say we're more united, despite any promises to bring all sides together. In Washington, I'm Scott Thuman.
Good looking afternoon, everybody. 81 degrees now on the Toyota East Inner Harbor Skycam. Winds out of the west-northwest at 11 miles an hour, bringing those humidity levels down to only 42% in the dew point at 56. And when we talk dew point is basically the measure of moisture in the air. The lower that is, the more comfortable it feels. So look at that. For our Wednesday, for our Thursday, those low to mid 50s feel great. And even Friday, still comfortable. Over the weekend, though, starting to get a little more kind of a summery appeal, if you will. It's not going to be flat out humid, but you'll feel the air a little bit more. And it will warm up into the mid 80s as we head through the weekend as well. So enjoy this little respite. We'll start seeing, as of course fall approaches, more of these longer term respites coming. Now down to the south, I guess our beautiful weather is at the expense of what's going on down here across Florida and Georgia, the Carolinas, clouds, even some showers, even some heavy rain down Florida way. As our latest weather maker, a cold front, moved on through here a couple days ago. That is now stalled down to our south. Fair weather high pressure is our weather maker for the next several days. In fact, the next couple of days, temperatures stay steady or maybe even cool a couple degrees before a nice weekend pop coming our way. Currently, temperatures outside in the 70s to right around 80 degrees, 81 here in Baltimore, 81 at Elkton, some of the warm spots. Notice in the northeastern U.S. and mid-Atlantic, those cooler temperatures, and also in the western United States, the warmth in the middle of the country, and eventually that will gradually approach us. Now, out in the tropics, this kind of popping up out of nowhere here is Tropical Depression number 7. This could become a tropical storm, but eventually looks like it does move somewhere close to Puerto Rico as a big rainmaker, and then potentially could just diminish over the mountainous island of Hispaniola right around the Dominican Republic and Haiti. Now, those remnants may actually end up pushing north eventually, and then we'll have to see if that becomes anything more once again. That's it in the tropics right now. And that's pretty good for the peak of hurricane season in mid-September. Temperatures falling through the 70s this evening and into the 60s, even some 50s overnight. Take a look here by about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, 59 degrees up Westminster Way, 57 at Frederick. So maybe even a light jacket or sweater to start your morning. I know my kids had their sweaters on heading to school. And then as we work our way through about noontime and beyond tomorrow, temperatures well into the 70s to near 80 degrees, maybe a couple degrees cooler than today. Moonlit skies tonight, 60 tomorrow, 78, mostly sunny. Head out to the playground. Actually stay there the next couple of days. Friday, Saturday, great looking day. Sunday, 84. And next chance of rain, very light, just a chance of a shower later Monday into Tuesday.
Jonathan, thank you. The Maryland Zoo in Baltimore is welcoming 2 new adorable residents. Oh, look at that. The zoo tweeted the arrival of 2 female Sitatunga calves this weekend. These are the first calves to be sired by Bo, the zoo's adult male, who was specifically selected to be part of the breeding program. Sitatungas are marsh-dwelling antelope native to Central Africa. You can see the now 12-animal-strong herd along the boardwalk. Not the one in Baltimore, in Ocean City, but the one in Baltimore, and the zoo's African journey. It is the day hospitals hope never comes, but they have to be prepared. How first responders get ready to deal with a mass casualty event.
I'm Christine Frizzell in Washington, where some are calling on Congress to do more to change the way racism and gender identity are taught at schools on U.S. military bases. The findings of a new report coming up.
Well, the debate over what some say is being taught in America's classrooms is spilling over onto U.S. military bases. National correspondent Christine Frizzell digs into the debate as part of our series, Crisis in the Classroom.
I am disgusted.
Eruptions at school board meetings have sparked new debates about how subjects like diversity, racism, and gender identity are taught in America's schools. Now a focus for some on taxpayer-funded schools on U.S. military bases.
They have a captive audience in school children on military bases. They don't have other options for educating their children.
Ryan Williams, president of the conservative Claremont Institute, points to videos like this his organization obtained from the government.
Kids as young as 4 years old are already starting to develop a stable understanding of their gender identity.
Findings are outlined in a new report called Grooming Future Revolutionaries. Concerns include, quote, peddling critical race theory, white shaming, queer theory, and left-wing activism to children in its K-12 military schools through teaching methods.
It's to encourage children to share with their teachers their preferred pronouns or maybe any secrets they have about their sexual orientation that they might not share at home.
According to the Department of Defense, about 43% of active duty members of the military are people of color.
A large percentage of people who serve in the U.S. military are black and brown and probably want their children to learn about systemic racism, which is, you know, the history of why, you know, there is still such a huge socioeconomic divide between, you know, minorities and majorities.
We reject at the Claremont Institute the premise that all disparities are due to systemic racism.
Still, some of the highest-ranking members of the military have shared different views on the matter.
I want to understand white rage, and I'm white. What is wrong with understanding, having some situational understanding about the country for which we are here to defend?
Still, the Claremont Institute and some lawmakers are calling on Congress to provide more oversight over what is and is not taught at schools on U.S. bases, and even to threaten to withhold funding if changes aren't made. On Capitol Hill, I'm Christine Frizzau.
Well, some in West Baltimore sticking with bottled water after an E. coli scare, what they say it would take to start drinking from the tap again. City Schools has seen a string of violent incidents to start the school year. Coming up, Project Baltimore investigates why it's happening and how to stop it. And two Ravens fanatics are in for a dream wedding. How a Hail Mary landed them a touchdown of a guest on their very special day. We are following the breaking news, taking a live look at the federal courthouse, and Marilyn Mosby's attorney, Scott A. Bolden, is speaking. We may want to listen in at this point.
Element and requirement the judges asked us to do. The government has known about experts. They have repeatedly told the public and the court that they didn't want experts. And now on the eve of trial, if not further persecution of Marilyn Mosby as a public official, they throw gasoline on an already troublesome prosecution, a prosecution of unprecedented, where she's being charged with allegedly stealing her own money, allegedly lying to herself, getting her own money out of her 457B, and the government is prosecuting her. By the way, you all should look this up. There's 700 people in the Baltimore City government that took loans under 457B CARES Act. We're not talking about withdrawals. We're not talking about PPP money, not government money, her own money. 120,000 federal employees took money under the CARES Act out of their 457Bs. Not one of them is being prosecuted by the U.S. government. Oh, I'm sorry, there is one. Marilyn Mosby. She's lost the election. She certainly wants to move on with her life. And to make matters worse, the government, as part of their gamesmanship and continued persecution, now wants a continuance because they realize that we have some incredible experts to defend her. And they've told us repeatedly they didn't want experts, they didn't need experts, and now on the eve of trial, they report to the court on the record that they're going to use experts. All right? If I could curse, I'd tell you it was all bullshit. Right? If I could curse, I'd tell you that it was hilarious, except her life is at stake. Her family's at stake. She's got a full defense. I've talked about the business before, and the government has amnesia about it now. So, in the interest of justice, Her Honor indicated that there were going to be a continuance. There was going to be a continuance. We vehemently opposed it. We're ready to go. And lastly, let's not forget my client is innocent as she stands here. She's innocent. When she walks in the courtroom, she's innocent. She doesn't have to put on any defense. I don't care what the media, her political enemies, and her critics on social media say. She's innocent. They've never prosecuted anybody before in the history of this country for taking their own money out of their retirement fund, 457B, under the CARES Act. Look at those numbers. Those are real numbers. They ought to scare you. Because if you're in the federal government, if you're in the state government, if you're an African-American politician working for the government, you are at risk because of the U.S. Attorney's Office in the city of Baltimore. I have nothing further. In court, you called it a strategic mistake. She's got nothing further. Let's go.
Can I say, in fairness, the judge pointed out, Mr. Bolden, several times that you did not follow her order and her schedule and make these disclosures back in July.
We disagree on that. We disagree.
How so? Can you explain that?
Got my comment. We disagree.
Mr. Bolden, you said that she lost the election in connection to this. Can you elaborate on that?
Excuse me.
Mr. Bolden, what's next? When would you like to see this case move to trial since it's not starting on Monday?
Tomorrow.
Well, that's probably not going to happen. So what's your next option?
We'll be in court tomorrow to try to figure that out with the judge. It'll be up to the court and the consultation with counsel.
Do you have any idea what would happen with the jurors who already got the questionnaires and all of that stuff? Would that be put on hold? Would that be a discussion for tomorrow?
Got to talk to the court about that.
What does it say to
your defense.
Be careful, man.
Watch out, Lance. Watch out, watch out.
Mr. Bolden, can you explain a
That
little
City
bit more
State's
about
Attorney Marilyn Mosby walking out of court with her husband Nick Mosby. A. Scott Bolden right now is Mackenzie Frost, our reporter who's been covering this from the very beginning, tries to talk with him. A pretty long speech, and surprisingly, because you typically don't hear the defense really ready to talk while the trial is underway. But again, this trial is now being delayed. The defense clearly not happy about that. Some critics point out if you don't have a good defense set up, Mary, what you do is kind of argue this in the court of public opinion. We're going to talk, obviously, with some of our observers, Kurt Nachman, people like that who've observed this and who believe that's what A. Scott Bolden is doing. But it's going to be up to a jury ultimately to decide whether or not she was right or wrong.
And clearly this went back and forth. Mosby's side wanted a delay. They got it. Now
Yep.
prosecutors say they didn't get their expert witness list in by the July 1st deadline, which was set by the judge in this case. So now they see who those experts are, and they want to have their own experts to rebut what those experts say. It is definitely a back and forth, and we'll see tomorrow if they set a new trial date.
In a city in crisis, a major new development in the case of a convicted killer, Adnan Syed.
City's state's attorney, Marilyn Mosby, is asking the court to set him free. Jeff Abel is live tonight with the latest turn of events in this case. Jeff?
As you may remember, Adnan Syed stood trial in this courthouse some 22 years ago, where he was convicted of first-degree murder. But today, State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby is asking the court to vacate that conviction and set Syed free. Now, it all came in a filing today in circuit court where the state's attorney is asking the court to vacate that judgment and saying the state lacks confidence in the integrity of this conviction. Syed has been serving a life sentence for the first-degree murder of Heyman Lee, a case that was the subject of the hit podcast Serial and raised doubts about his involvement. Well, in today's filing, Mosby's office says it has identified 2 new suspects which weren't previously disclosed to the defense. She also is raising questions about the reliability of cell phone data used in that case. Today, the state's attorney is asking the court to throw out the case and suggest a new trial should be called and that Syed should be freed. So far, a court date to hear all of this has yet to be set. We're live at the Mitchell Courthouse. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Baltimore's on the verge of its eighth straight year with more than 300 people killed. And it's become clear city schools are not immune to the violence. Earlier this month, 17-year-old Jeremiah Brogdon was shot and killed outside Merville High School. Police say Brogdon got into a dispute with a student from another school who pulled out a gun. In January, Project Baltimore spoke with 2 city school police officers who alleged that violence on school property is getting worse, even if the data doesn't show it.
It's disappointing because you're only making a statement to appease the people when you're not taking care of the problem.
Tonight at 10 o'clock, Project Baltimore investigates a policy change that led to a major drop in student arrests. School police officers believe that could be contributing to the city's epidemic of violence.
Comptroller Peter Franchot says Maryland has a $2 billion revenue surplus for the fiscal year 2022. He says the state will transfer $870 million of that into the state's savings fund as required by law. That's split up into the Rainy Day Fund and the Fiscal Responsibility Fund, which helps cover education expenses. Franchot says lawmakers should also transfer the more than $1.2 billion in unassigned funds to the Rainy Day Fund as well. Well, the movie Wedding Crashers stars actors Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson, and the pair spend their free time showing up to wedding receptions of couples they don't exactly know. Kind of a similar situation for Ravens cornerback Marlon Humphrey, except he got an invite in the mail. And we should say that movie was filmed on Maryland's Eastern Shore.
Was. Absolutely. Rocco DeSangro has more about how this all came about. Rocco.
Yeah, guys, Nick Wynell and Kylie Watson were putting together their list of wedding invites. The couple will tie the knot on October 28th of this year. When they ordered their invitations, they received more than the amount of people they were initially going to attend. So they decided to invite more, including Ravens cornerback Marlon Humphrey. From his comments about mac and cheese to his hilarious antics following Ravens practice or a big win, Humphrey has established himself as a must-follow on social media. He posted to his Instagram story on Tuesday with a picture of the invite with a caption that read, "Not sure who this is that invited me to this wedding, but I'm coming." If he does show up, it would make Nick and Kylie's big day that much better.
I don't think any of the guests really know yet.
Our families do.
Yeah.
They're also, Ravens are their team, so they are elated to even know that he acknowledged the receipt of the invitation. But it would truly make our day that much more special.
I know he's got some style too, so I would expect him to show up dressed to the nines.
So imagine if he does. The Ravens are on the road in Tampa for Thursday night football the day before the wedding. So we'll see if Marlon truly is a man of his word and does end up attending Nick and Kylie's special day. Kai and Mary.
All right, Rocco, thank you. Former Maryland Congressman Elijah Cummings receives a major honor at the U.S. Capitol. How members of Congress are honoring the late Baltimore native.
Inflation prices remain high, so how is this affecting real Americans? I'm Kayla Gaskins with that story from Washington.
And after a beautiful sunshiny day overnight, it looks like we cool down into the 60s, maybe even some jacket weather by the morning. I'm going to let you know how cold your neighborhood's going to be when you wake up. My Weather Authority forecast.
More inflation frustration. However, diesel fuel drops below $5 a gallon. The nationwide average for a gallon is now $4.99, according to AAA. It's been more than $5 a gallon for months. Now, trucks need diesel fuel to operate, and when the cost goes up, that's passed on to consumers, keeping inflation high. Diesel fuel was $3.29 a gallon this time last year. In Maryland, gas prices are down to $3.49 a gallon. That's nearly 50 cents cheaper than a month ago. Overall, inflation is down thanks to lower gas prices, but necessities like food and housing remain higher than last year. Economists say high prices at grocery stores are hurting American families. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins shows us how some are being forced to make difficult decisions.
I spoke with a single mom of two. She says that she had to sell her car because of high gas prices and now uses that money to buy food for her kids. Kiara Age lives with her two children in Henderson, Nevada, packing lunches. Increasingly packs a punch to her family budget.
Lunchables, they used to be like $1 and some change. Now they're almost $3.
With no relief in sight, something big had to give.
I sold my car and I had to budget off, add that to the grocery budget.
American households now spending on average $460 more per month for the same basket of goods and services compared with a year ago. The latest numbers show overall groceries are up 13.5% year over year, the highest rise since 1979. But economists say it can feel even worse.
It turns out that a lot of the stuff that we buy on a regular basis has been some of the stuff that's been going up fastest in price. You know, things like eggs, for example. It's just crazy to think about how much a dozen eggs have gone up.
Egg prices up nearly 40%.
Bread is, oh my goodness, bread is almost $4. Milk is $6, $7, $8.
Kiara remains hopeful relief will eventually come.
I hope so, because I don't think we can go on like this.
Economists explaining that while prices will likely come down a little at some point, it's almost certain they will never return to what they were before. I'm Kayla Gaskins reporting.
The heat in California caused Twitter's Sacramento data center to go offline. According to CNN, last week a Twitter executive said another outage could cause some users to lose service. Apparently, the company is relying on data centers in Atlanta and Portland. A Twitter whistleblower testified about this issue before Congress Tuesday. California isn't alone. More than 7,000 daily temperatures across the United States were broken this summer. June 1st through September 7th marks the third hottest summer on record, according to a Washington Post analysis. And it didn't let up towards the end of summer. Meteorologists say the heat wave in the West last week is the most extreme September heat wave the region has seen. The intense heat also broke more than 400 monthly records and 27 all-time records.
Yeah, and Kai, on average, the temperatures actually worldwide and U.S.-wide have been coming up, as we know. So, of course, that's something that scientists have been tracking and will continue to track for some time. Sunshine and dry for us, actually cooler temperatures, and our forecast by tomorrow as well as Friday could have only highs in the 70s, but weekend warming back into the 80s above average. And then some rain chances. They're going to wait until next week to get here. Mile 1000 Cam, beautiful right now. 81 degrees, winds out of the west-northwest at about 11 miles an hour. Our humidity 42%, dew point at 56 degrees. That is our measure of moisture in the air. And we'll pull out the muggy meter for this one, not because it's muggy, muggy, I should say, but the lack thereof, really. Take a look. When the dew point is 59 or less, like it is right now, it feels dry and comfortable, although that dew point is going to finally come up over the weekend. So enjoy this top 10 type of day and top 10 weather, really, that we're going to get for the next several days before that gets here. HD radar showing our latest weather maker is stalled down into Florida. That is a cold front. You can see it here arcing off the coast with showers as close as almost into the Outer Banks. But for us, bare weather high pressure has moved in far enough to be our latest weather maker, and will continue to be so, rather, as we head through the weekend into next week. Temperatures right around 80 degrees right now. You can see this kind of bulge of cooler air across the northeastern U.S. and mid-Atlantic, and then some more chillier temperatures now pushing into the west, and the warmth in the middle, that will eventually begin moving east, and it will warm our temperatures as well. Now, out in the tropics, just one game in town. It's Tropical Depression number 7. That likely moves just south of Puerto Rico over the next several days as a tropical storm, and then could end up arcing its way just north of the Dominican Republic. If it ends up impacting the Dominican Republic, could take some of the gusto out of this. But in any case, it's something that we'll watch, and eventually it could make a northbound turn, hopefully far enough east that it will not impact the United States. All right, future scan overnight tonight into early tomorrow. Temperatures falling through the 70s into the 60s. Look at this by early tomorrow morning. 59 Westminster, 57 at Frederick. Open the windows, enjoy. Temperatures in the 60s elsewhere. And then as we work our way through noontime and beyond tomorrow, back through the 70s and into almost the 80s, probably about, say, 78 for a high tomorrow. 60, mostly clear skies for tonight. We'll say moonlit. 78, mostly sunny. Get out to the playground tomorrow. Gorgeous. And then the next 7 days actually primarily looking great. 79 degrees on Friday, Saturday at 81, 84 on Sunday. Turns a little muggier. And then we could see just an outside chance of a sprinkle later Monday on into Tuesday. Mid-80s for highs there.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, it appears a delay has happened in the Marilyn Mosby trial. The latest on what we know about the case against the city state's attorney.
An artificial intelligence takeover. I'm Angela Brown in Washington, D.C. The job's in jeopardy of being replaced by robots.
Trending right now, the winner of an art contest at a state fair rarely makes news, but in Colorado, it opened up a nationwide debate over artificial intelligence replacing humans. The National Desk, Angela Brown explains.
This is Jason Allen's artwork. He calls Space Opera Theater. It won first place in a digital arts category at the Colorado State Fair. And Allen got far more than a ribbon.
I actually got death threats.
Jason's art, not created with brushstrokes, but AI, artificial intelligence.
In general, people that were against what I did were saying that I cheated, that I'm not an artist and this is an art.
The State Fair squabble exposing tensions as AI crosses into other disciplines once dominated by humans. Healthcare, a prime example. Dr. Lee, CEO of Sinovation Ventures, telling CNBC AI is being applied to every aspect of medicine.
Just using AI for diagnosis. in particular with radiology and pathology, is already better than human doctors, not in general, but for specific illnesses.
Last year, Startup Info published this list of 15 jobs robots will replace, including accountants, advertising salespeople, and delivery jobs. We talked to the publisher of The Decoder from Germany about how AI could change the job market.
There is, of course, also the risk that in certain areas, the human labor of graphic artists and designers will be less needed because it will be easier for non-artists to create images.
But using AI to create art to some simply crosses the line. Anger directed at Allen that he says is misplaced.
The forces behind the power of AI should be held accountable for their actions. That's where the ethics lies.
Startup Info says some jobs can't be replaced by robots, like lawyers, graphic designers, and even clergymen. In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
Let's take a live look at Washington, D.C. right now. In a few minutes, Capitol workers will unveil the portrait of longtime House member representing Baltimore, Elijah Cummings. Cummings served from 1996 until his death in 2019. Before that, he spent 13 years in the Maryland General Assembly and was the first black man in state history to serve as Speaker Pro Tem, the second highest position in the House of Delegates. Now we'll bring you the portrait unveiling ceremony live when it happens. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, prosecutors say they're unsure of the case against Adnan Syed and how it will hold up. What a vacated conviction means for a man sent to prison for murder more than 20 years ago. And it raises prices on goods and makes your morning commute a bit difficult. The possible impact of a national rail strike. Breaking news right now, the federal trial against Marilyn Mosby has been delayed again. Mosby's defense team doesn't like it.
A concrete plan could come sometime next month, but what we're learning about Baltimore's approach to solving the city's squeegee problem.
Getting to work could be a headache for people who rely on local trains. The possibility of a rail strike.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 5.
And breaking right now, the Mosby trial has been delayed again. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Kai Jackson. Now, that last-minute delay came on the eve of what would have been jury selection State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby's lawyers are outraged.
If I could curse, I'd tell you it was all bullshit, right? If I could curse, I'd tell you that it was hilarious.
Mackenzie Frost just got out of the courtroom where that decision was made.
Yeah, Mackenzie, attorney A. Scott Bolden, uncharacteristically talkative today.
Yeah, that's right, Kai and Mary. Usually we see him leaving the courtroom. If he does speak, he doesn't say very much, but tonight he had a lot to say. You could hear him there. Emotions running high. He says the defense is really disappointed after this ruling today from the federal judge to delay this trial. Now, it all comes back to a request from the prosecutors. They asked for this delay because they say the defense did not disclose the expert witnesses on time. Now, because of those witnesses, they'll be allowed to testify. The prosecutors say they need time to hire their own expert witnesses to rebut some of what we're expecting to hear from those witnesses during the trial. Prosecutors say that that is necessary. The judge seemingly agreeing with them, saying in order to make sure that this trial is fair, the trial needed to be delayed. Although we did hear the judge during the hearing today say that she was disappointed that this case will not be moving forward as scheduled. During the hearing, we heard Mosby's lead attorney, A. Scott Bolden, say that Marilyn Mosby does not have a job come January, seemingly pointing to her loss at the primary election in part due to this prosecution. After the hearing, he talked about how much this indictment has weighed on Marilyn Mosby, her personal life and her professional life.
My client's been under investigation by the United States government for over 200 days. She's got a family. She's lost an election. She needs income after January 6th, as you all well know. She is ready for trial. She's been ready for trial. We have fulfilled every element and requirement the judge has asked us to do.
So again, brakes on the trial for right now. So Mackenzie, jury selection was scheduled to begin tomorrow. What happens now?
Yeah, that is the question. We know that prospective jurors were scheduled to be here to go through that entire process tomorrow and into Friday if necessary. Now it's unclear when this trial will begin. We do know that we'll be back here tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock for another hearing for everyone to get together and figure out what comes next. But I also think that it's important to point out that earlier in this case, the defense, Mosby's attorney, were the first parties to ask for a delay in this trial, saying they needed more time in order for this to go on. Now we're seeing that request come from the prosecution and obviously upsetting the defense. And here we stand. We'll have to wait and see. Live outside the federal courthouse, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. And these are the charges Mosby is facing. Count 1 is for perjury. Federal prosecutors say Mosby lied when she took out $36,000 from her City of Baltimore employee retirement account, claiming it was due to financial hardship due to the COVID pandemic. And as you can see, investigators say she checked this box right here, indicating one of those possibilities. Now, count 2, a false statement on a loan application. Prosecutors allege Mosby signed an application for a $490,000 mortgage on a Florida home, failing, though, to disclose she owed significant amounts of federal taxes and a lien of just over $45,000. Count 3 is for perjury for another COVID-19 hardship withdrawal. This time, prosecutors say she received $45,000 from her retirement savings, again, allegedly checking the box here. It is important to note the indictment claims Mosby made more money in 2020 than she did in 2019. And then count 4, a false statement on a loan application for another Florida home, this one in Longboat Key. Mosby again failing to disclose the tax lien against her, according to federal prosecutors.
Our city is on life support. And here we have one of the biggest churches in the city of Baltimore talking about how to deal with squeezy kids. How do we deal with the murders that's happening in our city of Baltimore?
In a city in crisis, many are still looking for answers after a community meeting about squeegee kids at a church in West Baltimore. Cameras were not allowed inside that meeting, and city workers kept watch to make sure no one was recording it.
We have young people who have asked us if we participate, it has to be under the condition that we don't have the media.
The young people said they don't want the cameras in there, but they got elders that's out there saying we don't want our windows washed.
Well, Mayor Brandon Scott was not at the meeting. A spokesperson for the mayor says that the mayor feared his appearance would be a distraction from an honest conversation.
Well, from July 1st to this Monday, there have been 485 calls to police involving incidents with squeegee kids, and that includes the death of Tim Reynolds, a driver who was shot in an altercation with a group of them on July 7th. At the meeting last night, a number of different solutions to dealing with squeegee kids were talked about. City officials say all options are on the table, including paying kids to stay off the streets. A similar group is made up of select members from the city's Squeegee Collaborative that will meet to see which proposals could be reasonably enforced. Deputy Mayor Faith Leach says the goal is to have a plan to present to the public in 2 to 3 weeks. And that brings us to our question of the day. Do you think the city is being transparent in how it's handling the squeegee kid problem? So far, 100% of those who voted say no. We still want to hear from all of you. Go to foxbaltimore.com/vote to voice your opinion.
A week after his passing, the family of Travis Slaughter says they're ready to make their voices heard. At 14 years of age, Slaughter is the Milford Mill student who was tragically shot and killed at the end of a football game. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor spoke with his loved ones and has more on the message and memories they want the public to know about. Rebecca?
Yeah, Kai, I spoke with a close family friend today. They say they want people to know that Travis was an exceptional student, friend, and family member. But more than anything, what they really want is answers.
So unfortunate because he had his whole life ahead of him.
A life tragically cut short at just 14 years old.
We are not supposed to bury our children.
Close family friend Natasha Marable describing Travis Slaughter as a bright light taken far too soon.
He was always very fun, loving and outgoing, just a wonderful spirit to be around.
Less than 2 weeks into the school year at Milford Mill Academy,
he was so excited about going to high school.
Travis gunned down at the end of a high school football game.
It's very disheartening. To be honest, words can't sum up the way that I feel about this situation.
Natasha saying not only has she lost a loved one,
the pain is very real.
But it hurts worse knowing the entire community has been left without answers.
It is an ongoing investigation, but from what we are hearing from detectives, it was a random act of violence, that someone came and just started shooting in a crowd.
Not wanting Travis's memory to fade, the family is now pushing to rename the intersection where he lost his life Travis Way, hoping it will serve as both a memorial.
I think that would be a great way to remember him by, a great way for all of the people that love him to remember him.
As well as a warning and call to action.
We can look at that and say, we don't want another Travis Way. Something needs to be done, and it needs to be done immediately.
And this right here is the exact intersection they're hoping to get renamed. It's currently Washington Avenue and Liberty Road. Again, this is still a very active and ongoing investigation, so anyone with any information into Travis's case is asked to call Baltimore County Police. Reporting live, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Thank you, Rebecca. Happening right now, increased consumer costs and a major setback in attempts to repair the economy are some of the impacts a national rail strike could have. The first national rail strike in 30 years could happen as soon as this Friday, and that includes workers right here in Maryland.
That's right. And now commuters in Baltimore are bracing for some possible disruptions. Fox 45's Amy Simpson live at Penn Station with the very latest on this. Lots of people interested in what's going to happen.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see right now, Mary. But neither the Camden or the Brunswick lines come here to Baltimore's Penn Station, but Mark's Penn line does, and even those riders could feel potential residual impacts if this strike becomes reality. And some use the MARC train as a way to avoid battling Beltway traffic every day. And for others who don't own a car, it may be their only way to work. Earlier this week, the Maryland Transit Administration alerted MARC riders that due to an ongoing labor dispute between CSX Transportation and its labor unions, a strike was possible starting this Friday morning, September 16th. The alert says that CSX owns and maintains MARC's Camden and Brunswick lines, and a strike would result in immediate suspension of service this until a deal is reached. And today I spoke with a Montgomery County commuter about the impact of a possible strike. She says that she rides the Camden line into her job in the city here.
Gosh, I would really be crushed if I couldn't ride the train, because I've been depending on it for the last several years and I've become accustomed to it and I like riding it. I think it really will be a hardship for a lot of people.
You know, Amy, I took Mark down to D.C. for about, a year working for our parent company. I love Mark. It's very convenient, gets you right in the heart of D.C. Friday's fast approaching. Where do negotiations stand at this point between CSX and these railway labor unions?
Yeah, Kai, you're not alone. A lot of people touting how much they like the MARC train and riding it to and from work every day. Right now, all we know is that a deal has not been reached. Again, you mentioned it earlier. This is a nationwide issue right now. This week, CSX declining to answer questions from Fox 45 and directing us to those labor unions. Today, one of those unions, the Association of American Railroads, saying, quote, parties are meeting and working hard to try and reach an agreement. And in the interest of letting negotiations play out, they said they are not doing interviews or commenting at this moment. I've also reached out to the National Railway Labor Conference. We'd like to learn details of exactly what these railway workers are hoping for and where these negotiations stand. But so far, we've yet to hear back. Reporting live in Baltimore, Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Amy, thank you. Well, happening right now, a portrait of the late Congressman Elijah Cummings is being unveiled at the U.S. Capitol. Again, we're looking at some live pictures here. This is a live look at the ceremony as it gets underway. Congressman Cummings represented Maryland in the House for over 20 years. The portrait, which was previously displayed in the Baltimore Museum of Art, will hang in the hearing room for the House Committee on Oversight and Reform. Of course, Cummings served as the chair of that committee while in Congress.
Week one is come and gone for the Ravens. They picked up a win at the Jets, and now it's time for their home opener.
That's right. Sunday, they will host the Miami Dolphins in a big Week 2 matchup. Morgan Atzett live from Owings Mills as the Ravens wrap up practice number 1. Morgan?
Hey guys, yeah, week 1 is done as far as on the field, but still some shades of gray following it off the field, and that would involve Lamar Jackson in the contract status. Some news kind of came out Sunday. So post-game, when asked about it, just one question, didn't really answer it, and then his post-game comments were done after that win over the Jets. So today, some clarification or trying to get that from Jackson. We know he set his deadline for Friday as far as negotiations with the Ravens. The deal was not reached. They're done talking about it. But just from his perspective and how it went down, we don't have those answers. And Jackson was asked one more time about it today and didn't give us much.
You know, respectfully, I'm really done talking about it. You know, I told you guys before, you know, I was going to be done with it. You know, week one's over with. We're done talking about it, you know. I'm focused on the Dolphins now.
And Jackson had plenty to say about the Dolphins, his Week 2 opponent for the Ravens home opener on Sunday, even going back to last season, that disaster of a 22-10 loss where he was sacked 4 times. The Ravens didn't get into the end zone until the 4th, and he was visibly frustrated with that pressure, the cover 0 defensive look that Miami was giving him. I'm going to break that down further and how the Ravens spent this offseason trying to correct those issues coming up during Sports Unlimited. Reporting live in Owings Mills, I'm Morgan Atzett.
Well, getting kids up to speed could take years after the pandemic. The new effort from a group of volunteer tutors to fight learning loss.
Prosecutors say they're no longer confident in his conviction after he spent 20 years in prison. Looking ahead to what comes next for Adnan Syed.
Lines to see her stretched for miles. The latest on how England is remembering its late queen as she lies in state tonight.
And sunshine for now as you head out onto the porch or the back deck and maybe do some grilling. All systems go. Temperatures fall from around 80 into the 70s. Moonlit skies taking over. I'm going to let you know how long this gorgeous weather is going to last. And if the tropics are acting up, it's all in my Weather Authority forecast.
Fox 45 News, winner of 17 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
Queen Elizabeth is lying in state in Westminster Hall in the House of Parliament. The late monarch was carried in a procession with the royal family following. Thousands have lined those procession routes across Scotland and England to say goodbye to the Queen. Today's service was steeped in Protestant Anglican tradition.
And the blessing of God Almighty, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit be among you and remain with you always. Amen.
Queen Elizabeth will lie in state for 4 days until her funeral on Monday. President Biden and the First Lady will attend. The Queen was the UK's head of state for 7 decades. All right, another beautiful day out there. Did you do some gardening outside?
Just a small little bit.
Picked a tomato?
Checking a few things. I got to give you some more tomatoes.
Yeah, wait,
Jonathan,
I haven't had any of those yet.
You're going to get an ear of corn.
I'm feeling kind of ripped off here.
Yeah.
Ear of corn? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll take that.
That's
all I get.
of corn.
And one
I
kernel.
give you this weather, and that's all you can
The
muster
rest
up.
for your family.
All right, fine. Here we go. We could each have a kernel. So here we go. This is the weather we wait for all year. And here it is. Sunshine, dry for today, for tomorrow. Next several days, temperatures actually cooling into the 70s over the next few days as well. Then weekend warming back to the 80s and maybe a little more humidity too. And then the next rain chances with the next weather maker into next week. But don't get too worried just yet. 81 degrees, sunshine right now. Beautiful look at the Mile 1 Towson Cam. Winds out of the northwest at about 7 miles an hour. Our humidity at 42%. Dew point at 56. When we talk dew point, it's basically the measure of moisture in the air determines the comfort factor. When it's below 60, it feels dry and gorgeous. And guess what? That dew point at 56 feels just like that. Absolutely beautiful. HD radar. Fantastic. Lots of sunshine. 4 miles until you get down to the south. That's actually our latest weather maker, a cold front that brought in some of this gorgeous air. Clouds near the Carolinas and even some heavier rain down into Florida. But that stays there. And fair weather high pressure is going to be our weather maker over the next several days. Temperatures, again, fantastic for heading out and about, maybe a jog after work. 81 here in Baltimore. We're at 80 at Annapolis and 82 at Elkton, 70s elsewhere. We have warmth in the Midwest and then another little bulge of cool as you head down into the Intermountain West and the West Coast. Some of this warmth is going to eventually bleed our way from the middle states back here onto the East Coast as you work towards the weekend. Out in the tropics, only one game in town. It's Tropical Depression number 7. The newest track out of the National Hurricane Center takes it just to the south. There may be scraping just by Puerto Rico and then eventually turning just prior to hitting the island of Hispaniola. In other words, Dominican Republic and Haiti, which could potentially keep some of the strength with this, and then we'll just have to see where it goes. But for now, it looks like it should head well east of the United States. But again, it's something to watch since it's out there. So that, again, only game in town in the tropics, and that's great for mid-September. Temperatures in the mid to upper 70s through about 5:45, 6 o'clock. We drop off through the 60s by midnight, and maybe even some cool 50s. Maybe a sweater there. Westminster out to Frederick early tomorrow morning. Otherwise, 60s elsewhere. And then into the midday and afternoon tomorrow. Nice recovery into the mid to upper 70s. Enjoy, get outside. Again, nice outdoor lunch day. 60 degrees, moonlit skies for tonight. We're at 78 with mostly sunny skies out to the playground tomorrow. And it stays gorgeous for Friday into Saturday as we're getting closer and closer to fall. Temperatures actually warming up. Slim chance of a shower later Monday into Tuesday. Highs in the mid-80s there.
Jonathan, thanks. Is a curfew the way to reduce crime in Baltimore? Why one community leader says we need to take the lead from other counties to keep children safe. Could the pandemic be coming to an end? Why the World Health Organization says we are closer than we've ever been to beating COVID. Inflation is staying high despite efforts to lower prices. What could come next in the country's fight to fix the economy? Well, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says a bill to regulate stock trading among members of Congress and penalize members in violation is now in the works. It comes after the speaker was mentioned in a recent New York Times investigation, which found 97 current lawmakers or their family members bought or sold financial assets in potential conflicts of interest.
We believe we have a product that we can bring to the floor this month. I'm pleased with it. It's very strong.
Pelosi's husband invested millions in corporations like Google's parent company, Alphabet, which has been a subject of congressional scrutiny. Pelosi denies she shared any insider information with her husband and says she supports more regulation on lawmakers. The bill is expected to have bipartisan support. Well, diesel is back below $5 a gallon, but just barely. The nationwide average for a gallon is now $4.99, according to AAA. It's been over $5 a gallon for months now. Diesel fuels transportation, trucks, and those increased costs are passed on to consumers, keeping inflation high. Diesel was $3.29 per gallon at this time last year. Well, the price of gas is also coming down, according to the AAA across the country. The average for a gallon is now $3.70. That's compared to just $3.40 for a tank here in Maryland. We're lower. A year ago, regular gas in the state cost an average of just $3.04 a gallon. And continuing our coverage now, the threat of a possible rail strike is raising concern that the country's effort to curb inflation could fail. National correspondent Audra El-Nashar has a closer look at the issue.
Price shock many feel lately at the checkout counter, confirmed in the latest inflation report. Overall, prices are 8.3% higher than they were a year ago, but some categories are even worse. New cars up more than 10% and groceries up 13.5%.
It's just really been a period of adjustment, I think, over the last couple of years. And unfortunately, I think it's going to be a longer period before we kind of come out of this.
Financial advisor David Peters points to a supply-demand imbalance coming out of COVID, compounded by the war in Ukraine and natural disasters, a perfect storm of persistent price pressure. In Seattle and Houston, inflation is at 9% or higher. Miami, 10.7%. Atlanta, 11.7%. And in Phoenix, the highest at 13%. While prices rise, spending power drops. Census data this week reveals the median household income was essentially unchanged between 2020 and 2021, about $71,000.
The economy is still strong.
The White House focusing on the overall inflation rate, which ticked down slightly from July. Comments like this drawing criticism.
Overall, prices have been essentially flat in our country these last 2 months. That is welcome news for American families.
Meanwhile, Labor Secretary Marty Walsh playing an active role in negotiations between freight rail companies and labor unions, working to avoid a strike before Friday, something all agree would be an economic catastrophe. Peters predicts supply disruptions will be most notable for food, beverage, and household products.
Because you really can't find substitutes, at least not good substitutes for a lot of those things.
If a deal isn't reached, and soon, Americans may have to make what they already have last longer or go without. In Washington, I'm Audra El-Nashar reporting.
Do we need to start enforcing the curfew in Baltimore? The calls from the community leaders after an alarming year of juvenile crime. Could the people who have gotten COVID, who have not gotten COVID, should I say, be the key to beating the virus? The effort to find out why some still have not gotten sick. And after spending over 20 years in prison, prosecutors now say they are not confident in his conviction. The developments in the Adnan Syed case coming up.
A major new development in the case of convicted killer Adnan Syed.
City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby is asking the court now to set him free. Jeff Abel live tonight with the latest turn of events in this case. Jeff?
Well, as you know, Adnan Syed was convicted in this courthouse some 22 years ago of first-degree murder. But today, State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby is asking the court to vacate that conviction and set him free. In a motion filed in circuit court today, the state's attorney is asking the court to vacate the conviction, saying the state lacks confidence in the integrity of the conviction. Syed has been serving a life sentence for the first-degree murder of Hae-Min Lee, the subject of a hit podcast serial, and raised doubts about his involvement. Well, in today's filing, Mosby's office says it's identified 2 new suspects which were not previously disclosed to the defense. She also is questioning the reliability of cell phone data which was used to convict Syed. The state's attorney is asking the court to vacate the judgment and until a new trial can be set. Right now, a new date for to hear this motion has not been set either. We are live at the Circuit Courthouse. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. Well, the November election is just around the corner, and as part of our Vote 2022 coverage, we are pressing local candidates on how they would fix the issues facing our communities. Patrice Sanders talks with the candidate for Anne Arundel County Executive about problems with the school system.
As the school year is now underway, many counties are still dealing with shortages, teacher shortages and bus driver shortages. Anne Arundel County is feeling that pinch. Jessica Hare is a Republican candidate looking to unseat County Executive Stuart Pittman in the upcoming election. She says it will take a combination of solutions to address the bus driver shortage.
Let's start with, on the first side, offering financial incentives to parents who may be able to carpool. That might lessen the burden on the school bus system itself by taking out some kids who maybe would otherwise carpool. On the driver side, there's a number of things we can do to expand the pool of potential drivers. Let's consider vans and shorter routes instead of the school buses. That might help expand the number of drivers who could drive vans instead of the school buses because it's different licensing. Let's look at partnering with our local community college to offer free and expedited training in a CDL license for folks who would guarantee a certain amount of time driving buses for Anne Arundel County students. Let's partner with our church and faith-based institutions who have drivers and buses there. We might be able to expand our pool there.
Now, when it comes to the teacher shortage, she says the current county executive has had the past 2 years to address the issue and hasn't, and that part of the solution involves showing teachers respect. Patrice Sanders, Fox 45 News.
In response to Hare's comments, incumbent County Executive Stuart Pittman spoke to us about his plans to address the staffing issues facing schools in the county. Pittman says, along with personally pushing for the school systems board to take action and start bus driver retention programs, he's increased funding to schools to help them fill those staffing shortages.
These last 2 years, in fact, these last 4, we have provided to the school board virtually all of the funding that they have requested for school transportation, and then added on to that. She opposed those increases in funding and voted no on those budgets. But I think anybody in the school board, the Teachers Association, and the parents would say that, in fact, we have stepped up and provided the resources so that they could run the school system and get these kids to school.
The county executive says families can also expect more transparency from the school system with the new superintendent and programs to track bus arrival times. Baltimore police are investigating a shooting this morning. Just before 7:30, officers responded to a scene on Ellicott Drive near St. Peter Cemetery. A 35-year-old man had been shot in the leg. The victim was taken to the hospital for treatment. Anybody with information on the shooting should contact Baltimore Police or Metro Crime Stoppers. Now, the shooting this morning is the 423rd non-fatal shooting in the city this year. That number significantly higher than the 488 people who had survived shootings at this time in 2021. Homicides are also up in the city. This year, 247 people have been killed, when last year at this time, there had been 238 homicides.
Baltimore County Police have identified the officer who shot his service weapon during an incident Sunday. A spokesperson says Officer Chiverell of the White Marsh Precinct fired at 2 people as police tried to arrest them. Alicia Page and Kelly Anthony are both charged with assaulting officers. Now, police say the car they were in hit a police vehicle. An off-duty officer was hurt, but there's no update on that officer's condition. Fox 45 News has asked for more information, including whether any officers are on leave or if there is body camera footage. So far, the department has refused to answer any of our questions.
Well, Prince George's County just implemented a curfew for young people. It is part of an effort to keep them safe after a spike in violent crime against and allegedly committed by teens. Megan Gillen spoke with a community leader right here in Baltimore about whether a curfew should be enforced here.
We know Prince George's County is now enforcing a curfew in response to an increase in violent crime among young people. Now, some wondering if that could work here in Baltimore. Lifelong city resident and Baltimore pastor P.M. Smith weighing in.
Curfew is needed because we see the same behavior, catch, release, a vicious cycle. The experts say that it's going to require increased consequences and a collaborative effort by government agencies. Everybody knows that's not the answer. Everybody knows that it's personal responsibility and personal accountability. The family, adults, are the first responders when children are in trouble.
Pastor Smith went on to say it all starts with the family. I'm Megan Gillen, Fox 45 News.
Well, kids may be back in the classroom, but now some say it could take years for students to recover from the learning loss suffered during the pandemic. Kimberly Jackson from our Sinclair sister station in Washington, D.C. is looking into efforts to recruit tutors to help fill the gaps.
When the pandemic hit, impacting schools and students, Johanna Schneider decided she would become a volunteer.
My little girl, she was in first grade, made tremendous strides.
Johanna met with Jaden each week, and this summer she worked with others that showed her just how serious the learning loss is.
Some could read and some were struggling to even look at the page and ascertain what's on that page.
She is one volunteer, but the students need more tutors. The DC Tutoring and Mentoring Initiative is searching for thousands of tutors and mentors to staff local programs, all to help students who need it the most.
The achievement gap keeps getting wider. Even prior to COVID, nearly 2 out of 3 DC students needed extra support.
And now Tom Polak tells 7 News it's hard to recruit volunteers.
It's been a bit disappointing. We're passing out hundreds and hundreds of flyers.
Johanna says there were no barriers for her, and tutoring has become a blessing.
It's a wonderful thing to see a light bulb go on. Sorry, wait a minute. I didn't think I would do that. It's a wonderful thing to see a kid realize, oh, I get it.
Well, Fox 45 News is your back-to-school headquarters, and we're committed to investigating any problems that your kids run into, from teacher shortages or a lack of bus drivers. You can call our news tip line at 410-467-5595. You can also send us an email at news@foxbaltimore.com or chime in your pictures and videos on the Fox 45 News app.
Well, Baltimore is on the verge of its 8th straight year with more than 300 murders, and it has become clear city schools are not immune to the violence. Earlier this month, 17-year-old Jeremiah Brogdon was shot and killed outside Merville High School. Police say Brogdon got into a confrontation with a student from another school who pulled a gun. In January, Project Baltimore spoke with 2 city school police officers who tried to blow the whistle, saying violence on school property is getting worse, even if the data doesn't show it.
And disappointing because you're only making a statement to appease the people when you're not taking care of the problem.
Tonight at 10, Project Baltimore investigates the policy change that led to a major drop in student arrests and why these officers believe it could be contributing to the city's epidemic of violence.
Some bad news for skateboard enthusiasts. A long-awaited West Baltimore skate park is no longer in the works. Community activist Doc Cheatham was among those behind the Easterwood Park design. He says that project came about after he noticed children in his area traveling long distances to other skate parks miles away. But now, instead of giving kids a new place to ride their boards, Baltimore Recs and Parks is simply making improvements to the existing park. Cheatham says the community is devastated.
We are the Western District. That's the #1 crime place in the state of Maryland for the last 7 years. We have averaged 50 homicides a year. We're trying to find things to get the kids to do. My kids are so heartbroken to find out that they were really that close to getting a skateboard park.
Well, Fox 45 reached out to the Baltimore City Parks and Recs Department multiple times for comment. We're still waiting to hear back.
Not had COVID-19 yet? Maybe you are a super dodger. I'm Liz Bonas. We'll tell you a little bit more about new research and just what that means. It is just ahead.
Well, after 2.5 years, the end of the pandemic may be in sight. What world health leaders say needs to happen to get across the finish line.
And a phenomenal day, phenomenal evening, and nice, comfortable, cool overnight. Temperatures falling down into the 60s, even some 50s across the area. Get ready to pull out a sweater in some spots tomorrow morning. I'm going to let you know how long we stay with this gorgeous weather and when we could see our next chance of rain. My Weather Authority forecast.
Scientists want to study people who haven't gotten COVID-19 to see if something about them can teach the rest of science how to beat the virus. Medical reporter Liz Bonas explains.
Hey there, if you are one of the lucky people who has not had COVID-19 or at least any of the symptoms from it, you might be what researchers now refer to as a super dodger.
I've been exposed a lot over the last 2.5 years, as well as the rest of the faculty here, and this is my first case.
Dr. Scott Woods might have been a super dodger, but recently he got hit with what is likely the new BA.5 strain now going around.
That as this virus evolves, it gets more and more infectious.
He's cleared the virus, but still has a bad cough. And as a family medicine specialist, he knows
A cough lingering afterwards is very common.
as of this week, samples taken from commercial labs show us almost 6 in 10 adults and 8 in 10 children have been infected with SARS-CoV-2.
So it's not as severe a disease as it was, but who wants COVID?
So now scientists are searching the world over and looking for people who've not had the virus to continue to study them. So far, it appears one gene is linked to people who get infected but have no symptoms. But COVID human genetic effort scientists are now looking for people who don't think they've had the virus at all, in spite of repeated exposure to it. Now, there is early evidence that some of these people may be super dodgers, or even mini dodgers as they're called, where they have a genetic mutation that either keeps them from getting infected or they have unique T cells, which are infection-fighting cells that linger from other coronaviruses that help fight off this one. I'm medical reporter Liz Bonus. Now back to you.
Well, we're nearing the end of the pandemic. That's the most recent message from the head of the World Health Organization. With declining case numbers in many areas and improvements to COVID vaccines, the head of the WHO says he believes the end of the pandemic is in sight. However, he also warned that means it's more important than ever to stay up to date on vaccinations, expand efforts to vaccinate those in poorer countries, and also follow existing COVID guidelines.
If we don't take this opportunity now, we run the risk of more variants, more deaths, more disruption, and more uncertainty. So let's seize this opportunity.
The WHO Director General says monkeypox cases were also trending lower. He says they can't afford to let down their guard and let either of these illnesses resurge. Well, most people say their physical and mental health are in good position. A poll conducted earlier this month asked Americans how they feel during the stage of the pandemic. 80 to 90% report having very good or somewhat good physical and mental health. 78% report their personal finances are in better shape than at the height of the pandemic. Here's Jonathan with weather on a nice day.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is the weather we wait for, you know, in the middle of July and the middle of December and January.
Yes.
We say, man, why do we live here? Well, here's the reason. Of course, there's a lot of other reasons, but let's go ahead and take a look. Sunshine, dry weather continuing for days. 70s for high temperatures coming for tomorrow, as well as into Friday. Weekend warming, so I think 80s come back. Maybe some humidity, too, and then some rain chances into early next week. Mile 1 Tallahassee right now, sunshine, 81 degrees, winds out of the gorgeous northwest. It's a dry direction for us at 7 miles an hour, humidity 42%, and our dew point now in the 50s. And we pull out the muggy meter, not this time to talk about how muggy it is. We're actually talking about humidity and the lack thereof. The dew point at 56 degrees, the measure of moisture in the air low. Well, when that dew point's 59 or less, it feels dry. It feels comfortable there on the key, and it's going to feel like that for several days ongoing. So a real kind of almost fall feel, except the temperature is still nice and warm. Our latest weather maker down to the south, you can see here east of Jacksonville, all the rain, and off the coast of the Carolinas, we are jammed in with the nice weather. That rain down to the south and east, close enough. It's there down towards the Outer Banks and all the way along the coast of Georgia and Florida. But it's with our latest weather maker that came through a cold front, and behind that fair weather high pressure setting up, and that's going to stay with us. Temperatures in the 70s near 80. Get outside, enjoy it on the deck, on the porch this evening. 81 degrees at Laurel, 80 degrees in Annapolis, 81 here in Baltimore, and 80 at Elkton. Even some 70s in the mix as well. Notice the warm air kind of bulging up across the central portion of the country. That will likely move east as we work into this weekend. Now, in the tropics, there's Tropical Depression number 7. That's east of the Windward Islands. That could become a tropical storm and eventually could kind of make an arc just north of Hispaniola after making at least a hit partially on Puerto Rico. The computer models saying that after it hits Puerto Rico, likely it's going to make a turn to the north. We'll just have to see where that is. Still too far out to know if it'll have impacts on the United States, but at least some hedging that it would be east of the U.S. But it's something, of course, that we will watch day by day. Future scan for now. Temperatures falling through the 70s this evening. By midnight tonight, we're in the 60s, a lot of areas. And overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning, north and west. Look at those 50s, 60s along the 95 corridor. And then by 7:30 a.m. when you wake up, lots of sunshine, sunglasses on, cool start. And it's a nice mild finish with temperatures through noontime and beyond into the 70s to near 80 degrees. And it's a great outdoor lunch day there. 60 degrees, moonlit skies for tonight. Tomorrow, 78, mostly sunny. Out to the playground, everybody. 79 degrees on Friday, 81 on Saturday, 84 Sunday. So really warming up, actually, as we head towards the first of fall Thursday of next week. Only chance of rain in there. Slim chance of a shower or two later Monday into Tuesday.
Hey, Jonathan, thank you. Trending right now, the Maryland Zoo in Baltimore is welcoming two new adorable residents, actually. Zoo leaders tweeted the arrival of two female Sitatunga calves this weekend. These are the first calves to be sired by Bo, the zoo's adult male, who was officially selected to be part of the breeding program. Sitatungas are marsh-dwelling antelope natives to Central Africa. You can see them strong along the boardwalk and in the zoo's African journey. Well, coming up at 6 o'clock, Maryland's favorite garbage man has a big celebration. How Mr. Trash Wheel is being honored. Ravens taking on Miami this weekend for their home opener. We're at practice to find out how things are shaping up.
Ravens Week 2 preparations for their home opener against Miami are now underway. Notes from today: left tackle Ronnie Stanley, running back J.K. Dobbins, and corner Marcus Peters all on the field. Their Week 2 status will remain up in the air, though. Rookie defensive lineman Travis Jones also on the field. His first appearance since a preseason knee injury. Baltimore native Kyle Fuller was watching practice. He thanked me for my injury sympathy and said, quote, all good. The Ravens added veteran corner depth by signing 9-year player TJ Carey to the practice squad. Carey in a Ravens uniform for the first time today. Fuller is, of course, done on the IR with a torn ACL. Hey everyone, welcome to Sports Unlimited. I'm Morgan Atz in Owings Mills with the Ravens. Their Week 1 test against the Jets, not really a test. Week 2 will really bring a big one for their home opener against the Miami Dolphins. Miami has a new coaching staff with just one game, a win against New England as far as film goes. An offense with speed from a season ago that added receiver Tyreek Hill, and a defense that smothered Lamar Jackson. Remember cover 0, anyone? And handed the Ravens their worst loss last season from a shock value standpoint.
Well, we'd have been negligent if we hadn't worked on it. You know, it's something we need to get a lot better at, you know, and we studied the whole offseason, and you know, we'll have a plan for it, and you know, hope it works.
You know, they just, you know, caught us off guard, really. We haven't really went over defenses doing all up 0 against us, like just all up, flat out 0. But I feel we have an answer for it this year.
Of course, Lamar Jackson asked about his contract situation not happening by last Friday's deadline, and Jackson said today he is officially done talking about it throughout the 2022 season. Reporting in Owings Mills with the Ravens, I'm Morgan Atzett for Sports Unlimited.
All right, in-depth look at your weekend forecast coming up. Our GFS Future Scan computer model. This is what we use to make the weekend forecast. You can see mainly clear skies on Friday, nice and dry. Good warming trend over the weekend, and look, no rain painted in there. So for that final weekend of summer, at least on the calendar it is, 79 degrees on Friday, Saturday 81, and 84 bright and warm for Sunday.
All right, Jonathan, thank you. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 6, trial delayed. How City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby's case moves forward after today's developments. Food prices are becoming America's big sign of inflation. How your next trip to the store could be affected.
If I could curse, I'd tell you it was all bull.
Marilyn Mosby's legal team furious at her trial being delayed, why the judge says there was no other option. The subject of the hit podcast serial could get a new trial, why the office says that successfully prosecuted the case of Adnan Syed now says the conviction should be tossed. And the verdict is in for disgraced R&B artist R. Kelly, the charges he was convicted of and one he wasn't.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 6.
And good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Bubala. We're following breaking news regarding two high-profile court cases. Fox 45 has team coverage of both as we're learning some new developments in the Adnan Syed case. But first, Mackenzie Frost outside federal courthouse downtown, where City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby's trial has been delayed again, just hours before jury selection would have started. Mackenzie, the defense is pretty upset tonight, right?
Yeah, Mary, that's right, no doubt. The Scott Bolden, Marilyn Mosby's lead defense attorney, came out swinging after that hearing. We're learning that this trial will now be delayed for the second time. Now, federal prosecutors are the ones who asked for the delay this time. They say that the defense filed expert witness disclosures late, and they're just learning more about what that expert witness would say during the trial. That's why they want this trial delayed, so they will have more time to hire their own expert witness to combat whatever is said during trial. Now, Bolden was quick to point out that he says he complied with every rule and deadline that was set out for him by the judge in this case, simply denying the fact that they were late to disclose this. But nonetheless, this trial will be delayed. Bolden made it a point to say that Marilyn Mosby has been living with this indictment for long enough.
I've talked about the business before, and the government has amnesia about it now. So in the interest of justice, Her Honor indicated that there were going to be a continuance. There was going to be a continuance. We vehemently opposed it. We're ready to go. And lastly, let's not forget my client is innocent as she stands here.
And really, this all centers around the issue and the question about Marilyn Mosby's travel business. After the hearing today, Bolden was again quick to point out that Marilyn Mosby will be without a job and therefore likely income come January when her term is up after she lost the primary for re-election. But if you remember, Mary, earlier this year, the defense was the one who asked for a delay in the trial, and now we're seeing the prosecutors do the same.
All right, and Mackenzie, jury selection is supposed to start tomorrow. Any word tonight about another timeline?
Yeah, that's right. We do know that the jurors were expected to show up here tomorrow for that jury selection. Instead, we're going to see both sides in this case come back for a hearing tomorrow afternoon to really talk about what happens next and perhaps lay out a timeline for this trial as we move forward. But now, as it stands right now, Marilyn Mosby will have to live under this federal indictment for a little bit longer. Live outside the federal courthouse, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
All right, Mackenzie, thank you. Well, also breaking tonight, prosecutors are casting doubt on the guilty verdict their office fought for in the Adnan Syed's 1999 murder trial. City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby now asking for the court to set him free. Fox 45's Jeff Abel explains why.
Adnan Syed stood trial in this courthouse some 22 years ago, where he was convicted of first-degree murder. But today, State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby filed a motion asking the court to throw out that case and set him free. In a motion filed today, the state's attorney is asking the court to vacate the judgment, saying the state lacks confidence in the integrity of the conviction. Syed has been serving a life sentence for the first-degree murder of Heyman Lee, a case that was the subject of the hit podcast Serial and raised doubts about his involvement. Well, in today's filing, Mosby's office says it's identified two new suspects, which were not previously disclosed to the defense. She's also questioning the reliability of cell phone data, which was used to convict Syed. The state's attorney is asking the court to vacate the conviction and set the conviction aside until a new trial date can be scheduled. So far, a date to hear this motion has not been set. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Now, a Fox 45 News alert in 3, 2, 1.
More breaking news right now. R&B singer R. Kelly has been convicted on 3 counts of child pornography. He was found guilty of coercing 3 minors to criminal sexual activity caught on video. Now, Kelly was acquitted of conspiracy on charges saying that he fixed his state child pornography charge back in 2008. Now, this video is from when his trial in New York took place, where he was previously sentenced to 30 years in prison on sex trafficking and racketeering convictions. Now, 2 further trials are pending, one in the state of Minnesota, the other in Kelly's home state of Chicago, Illinois. Mary?
Guy, thank you. Well, new tonight, Amtrak is canceling all long-distance trains starting tomorrow over fears of a looming rail workers' strike. Through the Northeast Regional and Acela between D.C. and Boston will be able to run. However, 2 of Mark's 3 lines would stop. Fox 45's Amy Simpson explains.
Neither the Camden or Brunswick lines come here to this part of Baltimore City where Penn Station is, but the Penn line does, and even Penn line riders could feel the impacts if this strike becomes reality. For some Marylanders, it's a lifeline to get to work.
First stop. I don't want to say godsend, but it's really a perfect way for some commuters to get to their employment.
The MARC train running routes between Baltimore and D.C. or Western Maryland and D.C., a way for some to avoid battling Beltway traffic each day.
Well, it's much more relaxing than a stressful drive on 95.
For others, it may be the only way.
I mean, I see a lot of people who get dropped off at the train station, or they get picked up, so they don't have any other means of transportation.
Earlier this week, the Maryland Transit Administration alerting MARC riders that due to an ongoing labor dispute between CSX Transportation and its labor unions, a strike was possible starting this Friday morning, September 16th. The alert says CSX owns and maintains MARC's Camden and Brunswick lines, and a strike would result in immediate suspension of service until a deal is reached.
Well, I think it's going to have a really large impact.
This Montgomery County commuter gets on the Camden line in Laurel, riding north into Baltimore City. But if a strike happens, she says she'll have to make other plans. For her, driving is a backup, but parking downtown is the issue.
Gosh, I would really be crushed if I couldn't ride the train, because I've been depending on it for the last several years, and I've become accustomed to it, and I like riding it.
This week, CSX declining to answer questions about the looming possibility of a strike, instead directing us to the railway labor unions. Today, one of those unions, the Association of American Railroads, telling Fox 45 News, parties are meeting and working hard to try to reach an agreement, and in the interest of letting negotiations play out, they're not doing interviews or commenting at this time. Meanwhile, commuters play the waiting game until Friday morning.
I think it really will be a hardship for a lot of people.
Today, we also reached out to the National Railway Labor Conference. We'd like to know exactly where these negotiations stand and what railroad workers are demanding at the table. Those questions have not been answered. In Baltimore, Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Well, here's our look at today's top trending stories. Number 1, Baltimore City Rec and Parks leaders have scrapped plans for a long-awaited West Baltimore skate park. Community activist Doc Cheatham was among those behind the Easterwood Park design. He says the project came about after he noticed children in his area traveling long distances to skate at other parks just miles away. But now, instead of giving kids a new place to skate, Rec and Parks decided to make improvements to the current one.
We are the Western District. That's the #1 crime place in the state of Maryland for the last 7 years. We have averaged 50 homicides a year. We're trying to find things to get the kids to do. My kids are so heartbroken to find out that they were really that close to getting a skateboard park.
Well, Fox 45 reached out to Baltimore City Parks and Rec Department multiple times today for comment, but we're still waiting to hear back. Number 2, if you are a fan of Mr. Trash Wheel, this weekend is the perfect time to celebrate in Baltimore. The annual Trash Wheel Festival is back this Saturday, put on by the Downtown Waterfront Partnership. The festivities are taking place at Peabody Heights Brewery in celebration of the hard work done by Mr. Trash Wheel and his 3 friends. Be More Lifestyle's Mark Clark caught up with the brewery's marketing director earlier today to get a preview of this event.
FanFest is sort of our opportunity to work and sort of partner with local artists and people that are interested and big fans of the Trash Wheel. So there'll be a DJ, there'll be sort of interactive activities. So we'll also feature artists, art from about 10 plus different artists that are all Trash Wheel themed.
The event runs from 7 to 10 Saturday night. Number 3, Comptroller Peter Franchot says Maryland has a $2 billion surplus for the 2022 fiscal year. He says nearly $900 million will go into state savings funds. Franchot says lawmakers should also transfer the more than $1.2 billion in unassigned funds To the rainy day fund as well. Governor Hogan responded to the news saying he's proud of how the state has recovered from a $5 billion budget deficit when he took office. Well, Queen Elizabeth now lies in state in Westminster Hall in the Houses of Parliament. It was carried her coffin was carried in a procession with the royal family. Thousands have lined procession routes across Scotland and England to say goodbye to the Queen. Today's service was steeped in tradition.
And the blessing of God Almighty, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit be among you and remain with you always. Amen.
Queen Elizabeth will lie in state for 4 days until her funeral on Monday. She was the UK's head of state for 7 decades.
Inflation prices remain high, so how is this affecting real Americans? I'm Kayla Gaskins with that story from Washington.
And the Ravens take on the Dolphins here at home on Sunday afternoon at 1. Temperatures in the 80s, lots of sunshine, humidity still not bad, but showers to arrive shortly thereafter. I'll let you know when. My Weather Authority forecast.
Fox 45 News, winner of 17 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined. Now, a Fox 45 News alert in 3, 2, 1.
If you're just joining us at 6:15, our big story right now, the federal trial against City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby has been delayed a second time. You might recall back in May, Mosby's team wanted a delay. It was granted. This time it was prosecutors' request. The City State's Attorney's legal team is furious, but feds did successfully argue that late submission of expert witnesses proposed by the defense meant they didn't have enough time to find their own expert witnesses. There is a hearing tomorrow at 2 in the afternoon to reschedule the trial. Don't forget to download the free Fox 45 News app to get push alerts when news like this breaks and when the new trial date is set. Mary?
Kai, thank you. A new report this week shows inflation up more than 8% year over year, well above expected, considering the Fed's decision to raise interest rates. And those high prices are impacting every American family. One of the most visible signs of inflation, of course, is at the grocery store. As national correspondent Kayla Gaskins explains, it's forcing some families to make some difficult decisions.
I spoke with a single mom of 2. She says that she had to sell her car because of high gas prices and now uses that money to buy food for her kids. Kiara H. lives with her 2 children in Henderson, Nevada, packing lunches. Increasingly packs a punch to her family budget.
Lunchables, they used to be like $1 and some change. Now they're almost $3.
With no relief in sight, something big had to give.
I sold my car and I had to budget off, add that to the grocery budget.
American households now spending on average $460 more per month for the same basket of goods and services compared with a year ago. The latest numbers show overall groceries are up 13.5% year over year, the highest rise since 1979. But economists say it can feel even worse.
It turns out that a lot of the stuff that we buy on a regular basis has been some of the stuff that's been going up fastest in price. You know, things like eggs, for example. It's just crazy to think about how much a dozen eggs have gone up.
Egg prices up nearly 40%.
Bread is, oh my goodness, bread is almost $4. Milk is $6, $7, $8.
Kiara remains hopeful relief will eventually come.
I hope so, because I don't think we can go on like this.
Economists explaining that while prices will likely come down a little at some point, it's almost certain they will never return to what they were before. I'm Kayla Gaskins reporting.
Look at the Fox 45 triple cast. We've got beautiful sunny skies over the Mile 1 Tausicam, as well as the Toyota East Union Harbor Skycam, where it's going to be very busy coming up on Sunday at 1 p.m. for the Ravens game. And then on the HT radar, yeah, that's our latest weather maker. There's nothing there, right? Well, that's because it is fair weather high pressure, and that is going to give us some beautiful weather, fair weather friend, over the next several days. 79 degrees, Toyota East Union Harbor Skycam right now, winds out of the west-northwest at 7. Our dew point or a measure of moisture in the air in the 50s, so it is very dry, very comfortable. Nearest rain way up there in northern New York, and then there are, of course, well, the more tropical showers and thunderstorms down Florida way and into the Gulf of Mexico. Actually, some of that is from our latest weather maker that came through. You can see the nice, beautiful weather overhead, a cold front off the coast. That's that weather maker I was talking about. And then newest weather maker coming in, if you will, is our high pressure, that big blue H, and winds out of the north and northwest, pushing all the clouds and showers away. And we stay with sunshine for the remainder of the day into the overnight hours, mainly clear skies. Temperatures in the 70s to near 80 right now. And you see out to the west, all the way up to Bismarck, down to Omaha, Oklahoma City, DFW, and then in New Orleans, temperatures mid to upper 80s. That warmth is eventually going to be heading east, probably in time for the Ravens game. You'll need the shorts and short sleeves once again. Out in the tropics, there's a big bulge of clouds. It's just east of the Windward Islands. What that is Tropical Depression number 7, fairly newly formed. Looks like the track of that goes over the southwestern edge of Puerto Rico, and then eventually this arcs off to the north. Maybe over just north, potentially, you can see here with the computer models, of Hispaniola, which includes Haiti as well as the Dominican Republic. Very mountainous there, so that's going to have big implications on how much strengthening this is going to see by the time it makes that eventual likely turn up into the Atlantic. And even then, potentially, it looks like it goes well east of the United States. So lots of unknowns there and several days to watch. Future scan right now, temperatures in the 70s, falling down into the 60s by about midnight, some 50s, especially north and west by early tomorrow morning. Some of the more rural areas, you're going to need the jacket or the sweater. And then by 7:30, we're back through the 60s. And how about this beautiful outdoor lunch day? Get outside, enjoy it, maybe some soccer with the kids on the grass. outside after school tomorrow afternoon and even tomorrow evening. Looking great. Temperatures 60s and 70s. So the forecast for tonight, 60. Moonlit skies, winds out of the west-northwest around 5. Outlying areas could be in the 50s. 78, mostly sunny for tomorrow. Nice, good gusty breeze going again. Great for heading out to the playground, doing some swinging on the swing. 79 degrees on Friday. Saturday, dry. 81. Warming to 84 for the Ravens game on Sunday. Turning a little more humid. Could see a sprinkle later Monday and some stray showers on Tuesday. But that is the next and really only chance of rain in that forecast. We're going to have your exclusive 10-day forecast coming up after the break.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
A thunderstorm produced some very impressive hail Tuesday afternoon. This video comes from New York State, about 40 miles south of Rochester. Another storm produced this impressive lightning strike on the Cooper River in Charleston. This video is from earlier this month. If you know Charleston, this happened right in front of the Ravenel Bridge.
For more content like this, like the National Weather Desk on Facebook.
The video went viral, and now the boat's captain is sharing his story. The tense moment as a shark jumped out of the water and onto his boat. This incredible video making the rounds on social media. A mako shark leaping out of the water off the coast of Maine and onto a fisherman's boat. Well, in tonight's Assignment America, we're hearing from the captain and the first mate of that boat. Marissa Bodner from our Sinclair sister station in Portland has their story.
We were not expecting this at all.
David Sinclair runs Sea Ventures Charters out of St. George, taking clients out to fish for sharks that they then get to see up close and help tag. His 16-year-old grandson, Cameron, is his first mate.
I believe I caught my first shark when I was 4 years old.
They mostly encounter blue sharks, but on this August day, 15 to 20 miles out to sea, it was a 7-foot mako.
And all of a sudden, something took the bait really big, really fast, and he jumped. We knew he was a mako instantly.
It's on a fishing line with a young man, 16-year-old guy, turning the rod and, you know, having fun fighting it. And it jumped 4 times before it got to the boat. And the next thing we knew, he fell out of the sky and landed in the boat. So.
The moment captured by the angler's dad, who was up on the bridge with his camera.
And all of a sudden, here he is, right here in my face, and he hits me with his tail right on my left cheek, and then he lands probably 3 feet from my right foot.
Sinclair says makos are fast fish with big teeth.
Everybody scrambled, and, you know, I just held my breath. I thought, boy, injuries, high possibility, and not a scratch on anybody. The shark was not injured.
With everyone all right, he says they took some measurements, tagged the shark, then released it through the transom door.
Just awe-inspiring to see the power of a fish like that, and to be able to handle it safely and kick him out.
A rather routine ending to an unforgettable fishing trip.
Seeing one right here in my face falling out of the sky was pretty impressive.
I'm sure they checked, Jonathan, all 10 toes, right?
My
Are they there?
Gosh. I'll tell you, without that video, I don't think anyone would believe it.
I agree.
That is nuts. All right, well,
Scary.
hopefully nothing like that happening around here in the Chesapeake or the Atlantic. I'll stay away from Maine for now. Now, our weather, very Maine-like, I suppose, over the next couple of days. Comfortable, dry Thursday, Friday, lots of sunshine, 78 degrees, 79 degrees, respectively. 81 on Saturday, 84 for your Ravens game on Sunday. Bright and warm, and then just an outside chance of a shower or sprinkle later Monday. Tuesday, highs in the mid-80s. 84 warm on Wednesday. And guess what? We enter fall officially by the end of next week with temperatures in the mid to upper 80s.
Jonathan, thank you. Well, finally tonight, a touching tribute from the Ravens ahead of their home opener this weekend. The team will wear helmet decals honoring Jalen Ferguson and Hall of Famer Tony Siragusa, the Goose. They both passed away earlier this year. The gold decal will have the numbers 98 and 45, along with the words Goose and Jalen. The team will also recognize them with a pregame ceremony. The decals will be part of the Ravens uniforms for the remainder of the season. Love it. Well, that's all for Fox 45 News at 6. Family Feud is next. We'll see you back here for the news at 10 tonight. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.